Hello, fellow chatterers and book lovers and anyone else who has popped in because you are curious about what this is or you've got a bit lost. Welcome everyone, I'm Chatty, this is my channel, Chatty the Mad Chatter, and I'm going to be chatting away madly about what I read in November. So before I start, I feel the need to tell you that I still have not fixed my two-legged, X3-legged tripod. And I've just managed to kind of wrap its legs around a stool and prop it against something, and just as I pressed record or said record video, the camera went nah. So this is take number 3, and we're going to touch wood. That wood? That's wood. We're going to touch wood that maybe it won't fall over. Now we'll find out together. Yes, I'm already feeling very chaotic. I've no idea the amount of tangents are going to be going on. But if you've not been to my channel before, thanks for popping in. I hope you enjoy the chaos and the books. It might be nice. In my long videos, I just do one continuous shot. There is no editing, and it's just, we see what happens. So there we go. So here's my little gimmick. I've got my tiny teacup. Clink, 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 clink. One shot, no editing. Okay, my tiny shot of tea. For those without the visuals, I am wearing a purple bandana around my hair. And so I feel I need to dedicate this video to the lovely bandana book mum. She's having a little break from YouTube at the moment to manage life, and I'm very excited to see whenever she comes back, whenever that is, but just life is chaos. And but this is for you, Tallia. Thank you so much for suggesting, if you have a bad hair day, remember to wear a bandana. I'm having a bad hair month, so we're just keeping the bandana on, and we're just going to ignore that chaos and make a video, because I'm determined that my November wrap up is going to happen without, like 2 months in between. That's what I'm hoping for. And I'm hoping I can talk about these books without totally forgetting everything in them. I've only got 6 books to talk about, so we'll see, and hopefully I don't then think, oh, I've only got 6, I can waffle on for years. I'm going to try and be succinct. I'm going to try and be to the point and tell you about these books. So grab a brew if you haven't already. I've got a lovely hot cup of tea. It's warming up my hands, very nice. It's giving me all the warmy, cozy loveliness, and it tastes delicious. It's just regular tea with a bit of milk. Num num num. Okay, the first book that I read in November was The Nature of Witches by Rachel Griffin. So this is whimsical fantasy. Whimsical fantasy? Yeah, whimsical fantasy. So it's got a slight modern setting. It's sort of everyday life, but there is like a university or a college for those who are witches. So that's, all genders, not just women. And the witches in this book have not elemental powers, seasonal powers, which I've never come across before. So I found that a lot of fun. I really enjoyed like the seasonal aspect of it, and finding out what sort of made spring witches different to autumn witches. And I really enjoyed kind of how the seasons changed and they kind of came into their powers. Like all of the magical system I found really fascinating. I wasn't sure if it was going to be like a soft or hard magic system. Generally it's a soft magic system, but there are still like stakes and limits, but it's quite hard to like it's kind of quite hard to like label exactly what they are, but you feel they exist. So I enjoyed all of that. I thought that was great. There is a sense of stakes in here. There's a lot of kind of links to climate change and how the weather is affecting and how that affects their work. And our protagonist is struggling with her powers. She's a very powerful witch, and there's a lot riding on her, and she's trying to kind of get to grips with who that is. And as the story goes on, you find out kind of about things in the past that have affected how she is today, and all of that becomes uncovered. I really enjoyed this. It's not my usual fantasy read. There is a romance subplot in it, but a lot of it is about kind of like identity and kind of owning yourself and finding your own powers. with also the subplot of like the nature aspect. But I really enjoyed it all. It was a really lovely story. I think I'd definitely read it again. It's just quite a... It's not lyrical in terms of its writing, but it's it's very kind of has that whimsy kind of vibe to it, and there's a lot of kind of nature aspects in it as well. So I found all of that enjoyable. I enjoyed the characters in here. I thought they were all explored in a really good way. There is some LGBTQ plus representation in here. I had a really good time with it. The next book I didn't intend to read. It just was in my head for some reason. I was like, you know what? I'm just going to read it. So I did. So I reread this very battered copy. For those who can't see, the back 2 pages, the back cover and the, it's a paperback. It's an old mass market paperback. And the back page and the back cover have detached themselves from the book. And I'd say the front, like 5 pages detached from the book. There's quite a few. Where is it? I don't want to like rip any more off, but I'm quite intrigued. Up to there, I think. What page is that? Oh, up to page 13. So I start the book and I'm literally holding it in my hand, like trying to keep all the pages together. So this was my mum's copy. Let me tell you what the book is. That would be helpful, wouldn't it? This is Venetia by Georgette Heyer. It is a historical romance, but also a comedy of manners. It's definitely a comedy. I love it. It's one of my favorites. As a teenager, I read pretty much all of Georgette Heyer's works. Like, basically, once I'd read all of my books, I then started rinsing my mum's bookshelf. And over the years, she'd got a collection of Georgette Heyer, Ellis Peters, Agatha Christie, and so I was just like devouring all of the stuff she had. So I used to read and reread all of the Heyer books a lot. And got different things from them the more I read them and the older I got. This time reading Venetia was like returning to an old friend. I was like, oh my goodness, Venetia, I have missed you. I would probably say it's a toss-up between Venetia and Frederica as to who my favourite Heyer heroine is. There are other Georgette Heyer protagonists that I really admire and I like, but definitely Venetia and Frederica, like, we'd be friends. I don't know if that goes for all of Heyer's protagonists, but definitely I would be friends with Venetia and Frederica. I feel we have a lot in common. We're both older sisters. We're all older sisters, and there's sort of a bit of a nurturing vibe to that. And just within the first few lines of this book, how Venetia's talking to her younger brother, who's paying absolutely zero interest to what she's saying and like answering on his behalf, and then joking about and then just joking with him. It just makes me laugh so much. In fact, I'm going to read that passage to you because it is hilarious. So this is literally the first page of the book. So Venetia has been answering on behalf of her brother, who is ignoring her because he's reading. And he's telling her that he's reading the Medea. My son would correct me on the correct Greek pronunciation. Paulson's edition, which Mr. Apperset lent me. I know. She was the delightful creature who cut up her brother and cast the pieces in her papa's way, wasn't she? I dare say perfectly amiable when one came to know her. He hunched an impatient shoulder and replied contemptuously, You don't understand, and it's a waste of time to try and make you. Her eyes twinkled at him. But I promise you I do, yes, and sympathise with her, besides wishing I had her resolution. Though I think I should rather have buried your remains tidily in the garden, my dear. This sally drew a grin from him, but he merely said, before turning back to his book, that to order her to do so would certainly have been all the heed their parent would have paid. I just enjoy that. It just really kind of sums up Venetia's character and like her enjoyment of joking, her enjoyment of how she kind of gets on with her brother, their relationship to their dad, all kind of like comes together in that. And it was just, as soon as I was just within that few pages, I was like, yes, I needed this. I really needed to return to this. I also do really enjoy the romance in here. There is such a lovely friendship between Venetia and Damerel in this book, and it also kind of explores how it will work for them, and the things that kind of come up are understandable. It's not just miscommunication for miscommunication's sake and just things to propel the plot along. It feels very organic and natural and very much kind of about Venetia's character and the character of, not the character of society, it's like the theme of society's expectations and how everyone kind of falls into place with it. The side characters also are amazing. Like, it's this very small village and you learn how all these different people are, and you start to appreciate like just the way Heya writes this cast of characters. And it is comedy. There's so much comedy within it all, but there is also a romance you root for in here as well, and I just had a lovely time returning to it. I just remembered something I wanted to do when I was explaining about how destroyed this book is. So the book was first published in 1958 and this edition was published in 1971. So this book is from 1971 and it is still surviving. Over 50 years later. It's still here just about. I haven't managed to destroy it as of yet, although I've done a very good job. Poor book. The next book I'm going to talk about is a buddy read that I did with the delightful Emily from Novel Novels. I'm so pleased I read this book with her. This is Sleep Like Death by Kaylin Bayron. This is the Fairy Loot edition I have, which is a really beautiful, beautiful book. You've got the apple of Snow White sort of dripping in the centre and flowers surrounding it. And then we've got flowers, purple with pink flowers and purple, lighter purple flowers sort of on the sprayed edges as well. So this is a fairy tale retelling. This is my first Kaylin Bayron. I have not read from her before. It's a YA fantasy book. And I was very much here for the fairy tale feelings and vibes that was going to be conjured up by this book. And it did. There was a huge amount of like atmosphere in here. You very much felt like you were in these dark woods. You felt the threat from this, from I suppose the antagonist in this story, and sort of the mysteries surrounding it, and you're slowly unpicking it. And at certain points you get little I suppose Easter eggs to the traditional Snow White tale as we know. Emily had a brilliant time with this book, which I'm so pleased. I did enjoy the plot and the way the fairy tale happened, but I think it went too fast for me. I didn't get the emotional connections with the characters that I wanted. Pardon me. And I think for me to kind of immerse myself more in the story and have this idea of storytelling, which is kind of what we found at certain parts of the book, I needed more time in the story for that to be embedded in. We got it in like snippets at certain points that was kind of sprinkled in, but I needed it to be kind of like pulled together more. If we're exploring the idea of storytellings and how stories come to be, I needed that to be a lot clearer sort of in the beginning and kind of like pop up and down a little bit more as the story sort of like came into being. I would really have loved in some middle grade books that I've read, like particularly like Sophie Anderson ones, where there is a legend that you hear of, we hear those stories. So there's certain parts that I would love it if there had been. So for example, like in the chapters, just came past a chapter and it's just gone. I don't need to show you a chapter, but for some reason I want to. Here we go, look, chapter 2. If you had sort of like under the chapter, like a few lines of a legend or a story that kind of like went throughout the book of different stories that had been gathered, I would have appreciated that. Like, I think that kind of thing would have tied it together and tied the themes together a bit more for me to kind of got my teeth into. I can see what the author wanted to do, and I kind of wanted more from the fantasy world. I wanted more exploration of the magic. And I have enjoyed things like Once Upon a Time. I can't remember if I watched up to series 2 or series 3 of that, but where there is a lot of like weavings of fairy tales explored in there. So there were certain things that I was suspecting in this. There was a lot of things I wasn't suspecting, which did surprise me, which was a lot of fun. But again, to get the emotional beats, I needed to have breathing space in between the plot. It felt very fast paced. So I think for it to work better for me, that's what I needed. But I had a really good time with the book. Don't think I'll be rereading it, but I did enjoy the experience, and it was definitely fun to talk about and discuss with Emily. The next book I read was the only middle grade that I read in November, which is quite shocking. I don't know how that happened, but there we go. This is The Lost Library by Rebecca Stead and Wendy Mass. This was the 2023 middle grade Reader's Choice Award winner. So I was very keen to get hold of it and to read it because it was one of the ones I was really interested in. So this involves a cat who is the guardian of a little free library that just appeared one day. We've got ghost librarians, we've got a mystery, and we've got a boy who is interested in books. So this definitely celebrated the joy of reading, the importance of libraries, and there were a lot of kind of other aspects that I wasn't expecting in here that surprised me. It was fun. There was definitely some like the character interaction and things that was definitely like fun surrounding all of this. I think there wasn't quite as much from the three main characters interacting together as much as I wanted. I think I was wanting much more of a found family connection from those three than we actually got. But still definitely celebrating the joy of reading. It was a really heartwarming tale, and it has got like I think a large universal appeal because it is magical realism and mystery. So it's not quite as fantastical as some other stories, which I think definitely worked for the general appeal. But I probably didn't get quite as excited about it because of that, because my main joy is fantasy. But it was a really nice little book to read, and it's one I definitely read again and definitely read with my children. So I got interrupted, and when I came back the camera had slipped and was like tilted. I've got it propped again, but we're still tilted, and I'm just gonna have to be okay with that because I cannot get it any better, and I really don't want my phone falling over. So this is the best we're gonna get. It's just wonky vision for those who have the eyeballs. Okay, the fifth and I'm not going to say that word. The fifth book that I read out of 6 is Act Your Age, Eve Brown by Tallia Hibbert. Again, I didn't intend to read this book. I literally found it in a park. So in a park where I take my children after school pretty much regularly, there is a free little library there, which is lovely. And I noticed there are a couple of books by the sandpit, and they were just left there. I'm like, I can't cope with there being books just left by the sandpit. I'm going to put them on a bench. So I moved them to the bench that's next to the sandpit. Nobody came to take them. So when most people had left the park, because we always seem to stay till the end, I went to put them back into the free little library so they'd be protected, because I guessed they came from there because one of them had a library sticker on it. Then I thought that one of them was this book, Act Your Age, Eve Brown. And I was like, well, I did enjoy Get a Life, Chloe Brown. I enjoyed Take a Hint, Danny Brown. I preferred Get a Life, Chloe Brown. I have actually let go of Take a Hint, Danny Brown because I don't think I'm going to reread it. But I thought, you know what, I'll just read it and then I'll put it back. I'm not putting it back, I'm keeping it because I really enjoyed Act Your Age, Eve Brown. I don't know if I prefer this one over Chloe. I wasn't expecting to love it as much as I did. I think this is a lot of people's least favourite out of the Brown Sisters trilogy, but I absolutely loved it. Eve is a little bit of a mess, and I love that. I actually found that, one, really endearing, and two, I don't know, I think maybe I've just got a soft spot for people who are a bit of a mess. But like, her heart is in the right place, and the way of coping with things, I could see kind of what she was doing. So what really hooked me into this book was Eve. I could have just read about Eve. I really did not need it to be a romance. I just wanted to know about Eve, and I wanted Eve to kind of work out who she is as a person and where she fits and what she's doing. And that's what this book did. It just so happened there's also a romance in it as well. And I also really enjoyed the what do you call it? Like the other character in the book, like the love interest. Jacob. He's called Jacob. I really enjoyed Jacob's character as well. He's very like spiky, but like he doesn't quite realise it. It's done in a very endearing way as well. So I equally liked both characters, and I was rooting for them as a couple. And I was just like, I'm also a sucker for a bit of an entrepreneur story, so I really wanted the bed and breakfast to work well. It has a definite idea of like a ridiculous amount. No, I'm getting my words all jumbled up. there's definitely a certain amount of the ridiculous within this, and I really enjoy that. I don't want a romance that takes itself too seriously. I want it for like the entertainment, but I'm here like for the emotional I'm here for like the emotional moments in the story, and I'm also here for like the characters and the growth and the arc of the characters. But in terms of plot, it can be a bit silly. I don't mind that at all. So the more like farcical almost the better. I really don't mind it. It really kind of works for me. There is neurodivergent representation in here, which I think was done excellently. Yes, really enjoyed this book and was so delighted to have found it, and I'm keeping it. I think the reason Danny didn't work for me, whereas I know she works for a lot of other people, it's not she didn't work for me, it's just I wouldn't want to revisit her story, is I just think she's just really put together and organised, and I think I'm intimidated by her, and I don't know if we'd be friends. Whereas Chloe and Eve, I can definitely kind of like get along with very easily. So yeah, anyway, really enjoyed this one. Basically, I did not manage to get this in before bedtime. I thought I would, but clearly not. So I've just had to recharge the phone because I've left it so long. And I've cleaned out the guinea pig, so now I'm really sweaty and I've taken off my jumper. Anyway, one last book to talk to you about, and I don't know how to talk to you about it. It's The Fury of the Gods by John Gwynne. It's the final book in the Bloodsworn saga. And I think it's just going to be one of those where I have to like contemplate it, and then when I reread it again, I'm going to be able to fully form thoughts on it. But I think I'm still, yeah, it's been quite a few weeks since I finished it, but my brain's still sort of like reeling in a little bit, because this was the ending. It was tying up all the action, all the plot, all the character arcs, and it definitely ended, and it was definitely a lot of action, and my glasses have steamed up because I'm so sweaty. Awesome. Yeah, so I had a great time. I had a great time reading this. I definitely had to, when I was feeling busy again, I wasn't really able to read it in that busy mode because I just needed to kind of sit and immerse myself with it. So I've been finding recently that if I'm reading epic fantasy, I can't read it in like little bits and snatches, like every time I get a reading moment. So I have to have another book on the go that I can pick up and put down. But epic fantasy, I enjoy a lot more when I sit for a long period of time and read, because I can't leave characters in peril. I'm just worrying about them. And you've got quite a lot of people to be remembering where they are at certain points, so it just flows a lot better if you have a longer reading time with it. So a lot has happened. Like there's part of me was like, was that in this book or was that in Hunger of the Gods? Because it feels like so much happened in this book. We had all the character stories that we were following in Hunger of the Gods, we pick up again in The Fury of the Gods. And I can't really be more explicit than that, because it's John Gwynne. You don't know which characters are still standing at this point if you haven't started the trilogy or have only read a couple of the books or one of the books. And so I don't want to spoil anything, but the epicness maintains that state. You continue to follow the characters to the ends of their journeys. Things happen that you are hoping for. Things also happen that you were completely unexpected. I think when reading this, because I was so running, like I have said before, like with these books, I feel like I'm literally hoiked a shield on my back and I'm just running. I'm keeping up with everyone, I'm rowing, I'm fighting, and I'm just sort of there and going. So sometimes like I need a bit of time to like sit back and like take it in. And I think it's definitely one that when I reread, because I know what's going to happen with the plot, I'm going to be able to read it slower and take in all the emotional points for the book, because I definitely got moments of tension and moments of disbelief and all those kind of points, and just general anxiety throughout this. But I didn't like sit and let emotional moments sink in, because I think I was reading too quickly to kind of get to the next point. I know very much that that's a me thing. I am someone that if I have to go to sleep and I'm fixated on and worrying and obsessing about a character, I'm not going to be able to sleep. I'm going to be thinking about them. So I have sometimes, if like you end on one character then you have a few more and you don't pick up with that character again. Sometimes I have to skip over those two, get to the character I've been following, and just kind of check where they go so I can let my brain reset, and then I go back and read it all properly. So yeah, it's quite exhausting. I feel quite exhausted from reading this book. But I'm really looking forward to rereading the whole trilogy and having very little gap kind of in between them. Just like I said, like knowing what happens and just being able to sit and breathe. There was like a part of the world that we hadn't explored that was really fun to explore in this one. And we continued to like hang out with the good guys and the bad guys, and you never knew kind of which way it was going to go. And I think that is a testament to John Gwynne, that you just know it could go any which way. Like, you don't know when characters are going to make a good choice or a bad choice, and characters you've kind of been rooting for, you don't know if you're suddenly gonna like twist and go, oh, actually that wasn't a good choice, or vice versa. So it's really interesting, and I really love that about it. Like, you are constantly guessing. So yeah, it was a great saga. It was great storytelling. There's a lot of different relationships in here, like parental ones, friendship ones, like shield brothers, romantic ones, enemy ones. And I can't remember what I was saying since my last interruption. I think I was talking about the different relationships in this book, and all the different relationships with the characters. So yeah, great cast of characters, really enjoyed them, really enjoyed the plot and the story and the pacing and the sense of place within here, and I'm really looking forward to rereading it. I can't really say anything more than that because my brain is still a bit of a mush as far as this is concerned. So I think when I reread it in the future, I will be a lot more coherent and be able to kind of put into words a bit better. But yeah, great fun fantasy adventure. It was a great sort of like finishing off of the saga, and it was the final book that I read in November. This video has been all kinds of chaos, wonky camera angles, countless interruptions, but I have finally spoken about all the books I read in November. Definitely ending the year in like a spiral of chaoticness, but the books I'm reading are enjoyable, so that's positive. And please let me know about any books you've been reading in November. If you have any thoughts on any of these books, you know I love a chat. And if you don't have anything to say, I still can't speak, leave the most chaotic emoji. I'm quite interested to see what that will be. Happy reading, everyone.